The night shift at Earth's Deep Space Monitoring Station was usually quiet. Most operators spent their time watching endless streams of data scroll across their screens, broken only by occasional coffee breaks. But tonight was different. Tom Wilson rubbed his tired eyes and leaned closer to his monitor. The readings didn't make sense. At first, he thought it was a glitch, the kind that sometimes happened during solar storms. But these signals were too organized, too regular to be natural. "Sir," he called out to his supervisor, Robert Hayes. "You need to see this." Hayes walked over, coffee cup in hand. As he looked at the screen, the cup slipped from his fingers and shattered on the floor. Nobody moved to clean it up. The readings showed hundreds of massive objects appearing at the edge of the solar system, just beyond Pluto's orbit. Within hours, the United Space Command's emergency center was fully activated. Military satellites redirected their sensors toward the unknown objects, and radio telescopes across the globe pointed to the same spot in space. Admiral James Walker stood in the command center, surrounded by screens showing different views of the situation. His weathered face remained calm, though his mind raced with possibilities. 30 years in space defense had taught him to prepare for anything, but this was beyond anything in the manual. "Report," he ordered. A young analyst stepped forward. "Sir, we're counting over 300 vessels, ranging from small craft to ships larger than anything we've ever built. They're not moving in an attack formation. In fact," she paused, double-checking her tablet, "they barely seem to be moving at all." As if answering their questions, a signal reached Earth's receivers. It wasn't in any human language, but the pattern was clear: a distress call. The universal pattern of repeated bursts was unmistakable to any spacefaring civilization. "They're asking for help," Walker said quietly. The room erupted in debate. Some military advisors argued for caution, warning of potential tricks or traps. Others pointed out that if the aliens wanted to attack, they wouldn't pretend to be damaged. They would simply attack. Walker listened to everyone, but his mind was already made up. He thought about humanity's long history of seafaring, about the ancient traditions of helping ships in distress. Space wasn't so different from the oceans that had challenged their ancestors. "Ladies and gentlemen," he finally spoke, his voice cutting through the arguments, "I understand the concerns. But right now, there are beings out there asking for help. If we turn our backs on them, we turn our backs on everything that makes us human." He walked to the main display, pointing at the cluster of signals. "Look at their energy readings. Those ships are running on emergency power. Whatever happened to them, they're in real trouble." The room fell silent as he continued. "Imagine if we were the ones stranded in an unknown system, watching our power fade, wondering if our children would survive. What would we hope the aliens would do?" An older general spoke up. "But sir, we don't have the technology to help them. Their ships are clearly far more advanced than ours." Walker smiled. "Maybe that's exactly why we should help. Sometimes the simplest solutions work best. And if there's one thing humans are good at, it's finding simple solutions to complex problems." He turned to his communications officer. "Send a response. Use basic mathematical sequences to show we understand them. Tell them help is coming." Then to his staff, "Contact the International Space Station and all major space agencies. I want every engineer, every physicist, and every problem solver humanity has got working on this." As the message was sent, Walker watched the main screen. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, one by one, lights began appearing on the alien ships. Running lights, Walker guessed. It looked almost like they were twinkling, like stars thanking Earth for answering. He thought about the history books, about all the first contact stories people had written over the centuries. None of them had begun quite like this. But maybe this was better. Maybe the best way to meet wasn't through war or grand diplomatic ceremonies, but through one civilization simply helping another in their time of need. The real work would begin soon, and Walker knew it would test humanity's ingenuity to its limits. But standing there, watching those distant lights twinkle, He felt proud. Proud that when the moment came, humanity's first instinct wasn't to reach for weapons, but to offer help. 3 days after the distress signal, Earth's first response team approached the alien fleet. The team traveled in the Horizon, Earth's newest space vessel. Dr. Anna Miller stood at the viewing window, watching as they drew closer to the massive ships that dwarfed their own. "It's like comparing a rowboat to an aircraft carrier," muttered Jack Brown, their pilot, as he carefully guided their ship toward the nearest alien vessel. The alien ships were beautiful, even in their damaged state. Their hulls shimmered with a metallic surface that seemed to change color as they moved past. But the damage was clear. Huge sections were darkened, and some ships had visible tears in their outer layers. As they got closer, their instruments began picking up more detailed readings. Dr. Miller frowned at her tablet. "These energy readings are all wrong. It's like their power cores are running at 1/10 of normal capacity." The team had spent days practicing first contact procedures, but none were needed. As soon as they got within range, the aliens transmitted engineering diagrams of their ships, along with clear markers showing the damaged systems. The message was clear. They weren't interested in diplomatic talks. They needed help. Now. "They're dying," Dr. Miller announced, studying the readings. "Their life support systems are failing." From these numbers, she paused, double-checking her calculations. "They have maybe 2 weeks before the systems fail completely." The alien mothership opened a docking bay for them, large enough to fit their entire vessel. As they entered, they saw other alien ships inside, clearly damaged worse than the others. The aliens were using the mothership as a refuge for their most damaged vessels. When they stepped out of their ship, they met their first alien. The being was tall and slender, with smooth silvery skin that reminded Dr. Miller of their ship's hulls. It carried a tablet-like device that immediately began translating. "We are the Starborn," the device spoke in simple English. "We thank you for coming." The alien led them through the ship. The corridors were filled with families, adults and children from their fleet, all gathered in the mothership's safer sections. Some looked at the humans with hope, others with curiosity, but none with fear. Dr. Miller and her team were shown to their engineering control center. The technology was far beyond anything they had seen, but the problems were surprisingly familiar. The aliens had flooded through something they called a stellar storm, a massive wave of energy that had damaged their advanced systems. "Your ships," Dr. Miller said slowly, making sure the translator could keep up. "They're powered by contained microstars, aren't they?" The alien engineer nodded. "The storm disrupted the containment fields. We can't repair them without specific materials we don't have. Our children," the translator paused, as if searching for the right words, "they will not survive without the power to maintain our environments." Jack, who had been quietly studying their diagrams, spoke up. "The problem isn't just the power cores. Your backup systems are all designed to work with the same type of energy. When the main systems failed, you had no alternative." Dr. Miller noticed something interesting. While their technology was incredibly advanced, it was also incredibly specialized. Every system was built to work with their star-based power, with no alternatives or simpler backups. It was elegant but vulnerable. She thought about Earth's history of space exploration, about all the redundant systems and backup plans they used. Humans had learned the hard way that in space, you needed multiple ways to solve the same problem. "We might be able to help," she said carefully. "Our technology is different, simpler in many ways. But sometimes simpler is better." The alien engineer looked skeptical, but desperate times called for desperate measures. They needed help, and Earth was offering it. Back on their ship, Dr. Miller sent her initial report to Admiral Walker. "The good news is, we can help them. The bad news is, we'll have to rebuild half their critical systems from scratch, using our technology. It's like trying to save a dying computer with stone tools." She looked back at the mothership through her window. "But we have to try. There are children on that ship, Admiral. And human history has shown that when it comes to saving lives, We can do the impossible. Start making plans, Walker replied. I'll send every resource we can spare. Let's show our new friends what humanity can do. The Great Hall of the mothership had become an unusual workshop. Human engineers in their basic spacesuits worked alongside tall, silvery Starborn, their tools creating an odd mix of sounds that echoed through the massive space. Dr. Miller watched as Bill Rogers, their nuclear engineer, explained his plan to a group of Starborn scientists. He was using a holographic display they had rigged up from both human and alien parts. Look, Bill said, pointing to his diagram. Your power systems are failing because they're too complex, but we can bypass them completely. Earth's nuclear reactors are simple, but they're reliable. They'll keep your life support running. The Starborn engineer, who they had started calling Blue because of his slightly blue-tinted skin, looked doubtful. Your nuclear technology is primitive. Our systems require far more power than your reactors can provide. Bill smiled. That's why we're not building just one reactor. We're building 50 small ones, spread throughout the ship. Sure, they're not as elegant as your star power, but they'll keep you alive. Around them, teams were already at work. Humans had brought parts from every nuclear submarine and power plant they could spare. The Starborn watched in amazement as the humans pieced together their primitive technology with surprising speed. It's not pretty, one human engineer commented as she welded a connection, but it'll work. The Starborn were learning something unexpected about humans. Where their own technology was elegant and advanced, requiring perfect conditions to work, human technology was rough but adaptable. Humans built things to work in the worst conditions imaginable. A young Starborn child floated near Dr. Miller, watching the humans work. The child's parent had explained that their artificial gravity was one of the first systems to fail. The humans had adapted quickly to working in zero gravity, treating it like just another challenge to overcome. Your people, the child said through a translator, they're not afraid of getting their hands dirty. Dr. Miller smiled. On Earth, we have a saying, necessity is the mother of invention. When something needs to be done, we find a way to do it. The work continued day and night. When human tools didn't fit alien systems, they made new tools. When materials weren't compatible, they found ways to make them work together. Every problem was met with the same stubborn determination that had taken humanity to space in the first place. A week into the work, they faced their first major crisis. One of the nuclear reactors they had installed began to overheat. The Starborn engineers panicked, expecting a catastrophic meltdown. Instead, they watched in amazement as the human engineers calmly deployed a simple backup cooling system they had installed just in case. It wasn't part of the original plan. It was just humans being humans, always preparing for things to go wrong. That's the difference, Blue said to Dr. Miller afterward. Our technology is perfect until it fails. Your technology expects failure and plans for it. The biggest breakthrough came when they figured out how to power the Starborn's food production systems. Their advanced hydroponics needed specific types of energy to work, but humans found a way to modify simple LED grow lights to provide what the alien plants needed. Sometimes, Dr. Miller explained to the amazed Starborn scientists, the simple solution is the best solution. By the end of the second week, they had installed enough reactors to power all critical systems on the mothership. The sight was strange. Ancient-looking human technology nested within the sleek alien systems, but it worked. Life support was stable, food production was running, and most importantly, the children were safe. It's not permanent, Bill told the Starborn Council. These reactors will last about 5 years. That should give you enough time to either repair your original systems or adapt them to work with our power sources. The Starborn leader looked at the humans with new respect. We thought our technology made us superior, she said through the translator. We were wrong. True superiority lies not in having perfect systems, but in being able to adapt when those systems fail. Dr. Miller watched as human and alien engineers worked together, learning from each other. Sometimes, she thought, being less advanced had its advantages. Humans had learned to solve problems with whatever they had on hand, and now that skill was saving an entire civilization. No one saw the solar flare coming until it was almost too late. John Peters, watching the solar monitoring equipment on the horizon, was the first to notice the massive burst of energy erupting from the sun. "We have a major problem," he shouted, his voice carrying through both human and alien communication systems. "Class X solar flare, heading straight for us. Impact in 40 minutes. The Starborn's reaction surprised the humans. Instead of the calm confidence they usually showed, there was fear in their silvery faces. Their ships, already damaged, had lost most of their protective shielding during their escape through the stellar storm. "Our shields cannot withstand this," Blue announced, his translator barely keeping up with his rapid speech. "Even at full power, our ships were never designed to handle such direct solar radiation." That's when Tom Reed, a retired space shuttle engineer who had been helping with repairs, spoke up. "What about heat shields? Like the ones we used on our old space shuttles?" Dr. Miller turned to him. "The ceramic tiles. But we'd need thousands of them to cover even one ship." "Not tiles," Tom said, moving to a display screen. "The concept. Our shuttles used a simple material that could reflect most of the heat from re-entry. The Starborn have better materials than we ever did. They just never thought to use them this way." What followed was the fastest engineering project in human history. Tom's plan was simple but brilliant. The Starborn had a material they used for food storage, a thin, reflective substance that could be produced quickly. If they could cover the ships with it, they might survive the solar flare. "It's like wrapping the ships in emergency blankets," Tom explained to the skeptical Starborn engineers. "Not pretty, but it might save your lives." They had 30 minutes left when the work began. Human and Starborn workers poured out of the ships in spacesuits, carrying massive sheets of the reflective material. The Starborn's artificial gravity systems, partially repaired by the humans, were turned outward, creating a field that helped hold the makeshift shields in place. Dr. Miller coordinated from the mothership, watching as hundreds of figures moved across the hulls of the alien vessels. The sight was incredible. Humans in their bulky spacesuits working alongside the more graceful Starborn, all racing against time. 20 minutes to impact. John's voice came through the comms. They had covered most of the vital areas, but there was still so much exposed. That's when Bill Rogers had another idea. "The nuclear reactors we installed," he said quickly, "we can modify them to create electromagnetic fields. It won't stop the radiation completely, but it'll help." The next 15 minutes were a blur of activity. While teams continued covering the ships, others rushed to modify the reactors. The Starborn, now trusting human ingenuity, followed their instructions without question. 5 minutes, John called out. "Everyone inside, now." They watched from within the mothership as the massive solar flare approached. The makeshift shields gleamed in the starlight, looking like giant silver blankets wrapped around the mighty ships. "This is either going to work," Tom said quietly, "or we're about to learn if these ships have lifeboats." The flare hit. The ships groaned under the assault of radiation and energy. Temperature readings spiked, and warning alarms blared in both human and alien languages. But they held. The simple reflective shields, combined with the electromagnetic fields from the modified reactors, did what the Starborn's advanced technology couldn't do alone. They survived. Hours later, once the danger had passed, the Starborn Council called a meeting with the human engineers. Their leader spoke first. "We have lived among the stars for 1,000 years, she said through the translator. "We thought we knew everything about surviving in space. Today, we learned that sometimes the oldest solutions are the best solutions." Tom shrugged. "Sometimes the best technology isn't the most advanced. It's the most reliable." Dr. Miller looked out at the fleet, still wrapped in its shimmering protective layer. The ships looked different now, a blend of elegant alien design and practical human engineering. It was a perfect symbol of what they could achieve together. "Maybe," she said, This is why we needed to meet. Not just so we could help you, but so you could help us remember that simple doesn't mean primitive, and advanced doesn't always mean better. In the weeks following the solar flare incident, something unexpected began to happen aboard the starborn mothership. What had started as an emergency repair mission was turning into the greatest cultural exchange in human history. The large dining hall had become a meeting place where humans and starborn gathered to share meals and stories. Today, Mark Thompson, a ship mechanic from Earth, sat with a group of starborn engineers, showing them something they found fascinating. An old wrench. "You mean you still use physical tools?" one of the starborn asked through their translator. "We haven't touched our machines directly in hundreds of years." Mark smiled, turning the wrench in his hand. "Sometimes you need to feel the problem to fix it. Computers are great, but they can't tell you everything." Nearby, Dr. Miller watched as a starborn child taught a human child how to use their holographic drawing tools. The human child, in turn, showed the alien how to draw with simple crayons. Both children were equally amazed by each other's methods. The starborn were particularly interested in human history. They couldn't understand how a species could advance so quickly from simple tools to space travel. "Your people went from first flight to landing on your moon in just 66 years. Blue asked during one of their many discussions. "That should be impossible." Dr. Miller explained, "We're impatient. When humans want something, we find a way to make it happen. Sometimes that means taking risks." The aliens were beginning to understand why their advanced technology had failed where human solutions succeeded. Their society had developed slowly, carefully, always choosing the perfect solution. Humans, on the other hand, had rushed forward, creating backup plans and alternatives for when things went wrong. In the engine rooms, human engineers worked alongside starborn technicians, teaching them about redundancy and simple repair techniques. The aliens were amazed to learn that humans could fix complex machines with basic tools and spare parts. "Watch this," Bill said to a group of starborn engineers. He took apart a broken pump using just 3 tools, fixed it, and put it back together. The aliens had always replaced broken parts entirely. The idea of repairing something was new to them. The learning went both ways. The starborn taught humans about their advanced materials, showing them how to make stronger, lighter metals. They explained their understanding of space travel, sharing knowledge that would have taken humanity centuries to discover alone. One day, a starborn scientist asked to see inside a human toolbox. She spent hours examining each tool, amazed by how many problems could be solved with such simple instruments. "Your technology is like your tools," she said finally. "Simple, yes, but able to fix almost anything if used correctly." The biggest surprise came when the starborn discovered human art and music. Their own art was all created by computers, perfect in every way, but they were fascinated by the imperfection of human creations. During an impromptu concert, a human crew member played guitar for a group of starborn. The aliens were confused at first by the manual instrument, but soon found themselves moved by the raw emotion in the music. "There is something in its imperfection that makes it more perfect," one starborn observed. Even mealtimes became learning experiences. The starborn had been eating perfectly balanced nutrition packs for generations. They were amazed by human cooking, by the idea that food could be both nutritious and enjoyable. "Your species," Blue told Dr. Miller one day, "is full of contradictions. You build ships to explore space, but you still enjoy cooking over fire. You create advanced computers, but you also paint with your hands. You know how to split atoms, but you still use simple tools." Dr. Miller thought about this. "Maybe that's our strength," she replied. "We never let go of what works just because we found something newer." As she looked around the room at humans and starborn working together, she realized something important. The starborn had spent centuries trying to perfect everything, while humans had learned to embrace imperfection and work with it. "Sometimes," she said, "the best way forward is to remember where you came from." The warning alarms started at midnight, Ship time. Red lights flashed through the mothership's corridors as both humans and Starborn rushed to the main engineering bay. The scene inside was chaos. "The main computer core is failing," Blue announced, his silver hands moving rapidly over control panels. "The backup systems are not responding." Dr. Miller looked at the readings and felt her heart sink. The computer core didn't just run the ship's systems, it maintained life support for over 50,000 Starborn. Without it, they had hours at most. "Can't we switch to the emergency computers?" she asked. "They're all connected to the main core," Blue replied. It's how we've always built our systems. Everything linked, everything perfect." His voice trailed off as he realized their perfect system was now their biggest weakness. Bill pushed through the crowd. "How long do we have?" 4 hours before life support fails," Blue answered. "Less in some sections." Admiral Walker's voice came through the communication system. "All Earth ships in the area are moving to help. We're preparing for emergency evacuation." But everyone knew the truth. Even with every human ship in the solar system, they couldn't evacuate 50,000 people in 4 hours. They had to find another way. That's when Mark, the mechanic, spoke up. "What if we built our own computer? Something simple, just to run life support." The Starborn engineers looked at him like he was crazy. Their computers were quantum-based, centuries ahead of human technology. But Dr. Miller saw where Mark was going with this. "He's right," she said. "We don't need to run everything. We just need to keep people alive. Basic temperature control, oxygen recycling, water purification. We've been doing that since our first space stations." The next 3 hours were a blur of activity. Human engineers stripped computers from every available ship, while Starborn technicians helped translate their life support commands into simple binary code that human computers could understand. They worked in teams, running cables through the massive ship, setting up makeshift computer stations. It wasn't elegant. Thick bundles of wires ran through beautiful alien corridors, and human laptops sat next to advanced alien terminals. 2 hours left, John announced, monitoring the failing systems. In one section, they found an old Earth server that had been used for data storage. Mark took it apart and rebuilt it, turning it into a control system for oxygen recycling. In another, they used a gaming laptop's powerful processor to regulate temperature controls. 1 hour came the update. The Starborn watched in amazement as humans took their complex systems and broke them down to their most basic functions. Instead of one perfect computer running everything, they now had dozens of simple ones, each handling one specific job. 30 minutes. They were almost done. The new system looked like something from an old sci-fi movie, a mess of different computers, cables, and jerry-rigged connections. But would it work? "Main computer core is failing now," Blue announced. The ship went dark for 3 seconds. 3 seconds where everyone held their breath. Then, one by one, the human computers came online. Basic lights flickered on. Air handlers hummed to life. "Life support is stabilizing," John reported, checking his readings. Temperature holding steady. Oxygen levels normal. The cheer that went up in the engineering bay was deafening. Humans and Starborn celebrated together, all differences forgotten in the joy of survival. Hours later, as emergency teams worked to make the temporary fix more permanent, Blue found Dr. Miller in a quiet corridor. "You know what amazes me most," he said. "Not that you saved us, but how you did it. Your people took parts from your own ships, risked your own safety, to help us." Dr. Miller smiled. "That's what humans do. We might not have the most advanced technology, but we take care of each other. And now that means taking care of you too." She looked at a nearby screen showing the ship's status. The display was a mixture of elegant alien script and basic human computer text. It wasn't pretty, but it worked. "Besides," she added, "sometimes the best solutions are the ones that just need to work, not the ones that need to be perfect." 1 month after the computer crisis, the Starborn fleet looked very different. Human technology and alien design had merged in ways no one had imagined possible. The mothership's command center symbolized this change perfectly. Advanced alien screens hung next to simple human monitors, each doing its part. Admiral Walker stood with the Starborn High Council, looking out at the fleet through the mothership's main window. The ship still carried their makeshift solar flare shields, now modified and permanently installed. They didn't look as elegant as before, but they were stronger. "Your people have changed us," the Starborn leader said, her translator now programmed with more casual English. "Not just our ships, but our way of thinking." Dr. Miller, standing nearby with Blue, nodded. The Starborn had indeed changed. Their engineers now carried toolboxes, something unthinkable just weeks ago. They had learned to fix things instead of just replacing them, to find simple solutions instead of perfect ones. "The Council has made a decision," the leader continued. "We want to make Earth a permanent stop for our ships." What do you call it?" "A port," Admiral Walker offered. "A safe harbor." "Yes, a safe harbor. Your people understand something we had forgotten. That space travel isn't about having the best technology. It's about being ready when things go wrong." The announcement sent waves of excitement through both communities. The humans were eager to learn more about advanced alien technology, while the Starborn wanted to understand humanity's practical approach to problems. In the dining hall, Mark was teaching young Starborn engineers how to use basic tools. "Sometimes," he told them, showing how to use a wrench, "you need to feel the machine to know what's wrong with it." The Starborn children had started attending classes with human children through video links. They were fascinated by human subjects like art and music, while human children were amazed by alien mathematics and science. "We're ready for the test," Bill called out from his station. Everyone watched as the fleet's first ship, newly repaired and modified, powered up. Its systems were a blend of both worlds now, advanced alien technology backed up by simpler human solutions. The ship rose smoothly, its engines humming with a new sound that mixed human and alien technology. "All systems stable," Blue reported, smiling. "Better than stable. The redundant systems actually make it more efficient." One by one, more ships powered up. The fleet was ready to travel again, but now they were stronger than before. Each ship carried human backup systems, simple but reliable tools, and crews that understood both ways of thinking. The Starborn leader turned to Admiral Walker. "We would like to offer your people something in return. Our technology, our knowledge. It's yours to share." But Walker shook his head, surprising everyone. "Thank you, but I think we should learn it slowly, at our own pace. Your crisis showed us that sometimes having less advanced technology makes you more adaptable." Dr. Miller stepped forward. "Instead, why don't we learn from each other? You can teach us about advanced materials and energy systems, while we show you our way of solving problems." The Starborn agreed. Plans were made to establish a permanent human Starborn engineering academy on Earth. Both species would teach their best skills to the other. As the day ended, Dr. Miller found herself back at the window where it had all started. The fleet was preparing to leave, but this time it wasn't the end. It was just the beginning. "You know what I learned from all this?" Blue said, joining her at the window. "Perfect isn't always better. Sometimes the best solution is the one that can be fixed with a wrench and some creative thinking." Dr. Miller laughed. "And I learned that having advanced technology doesn't mean you have to forget the simple solutions." They watched as the fleet began to move, each ship now a testament to both civilizations. The humans had given the Starborn more than just repairs. They had given them a new way of thinking. And the Starborn had shown humanity that there was still so much to learn among the stars. As the first ships prepared to jump to light speed, their hulls reflected the sun's light. Advanced alien metal covered with simple human protection, working together in perfect harmony. It was a new beginning for both species, and the stars ahead seemed brighter than ever.